Have you ever looked at someone's success and felt that quiet sting inside? That little voice whispering, "Why not me?" Have you ever caught yourself comparing your life to someone else's highlight reel, only to feel smaller, weaker, and somehow behind? What if I told you jealousy isn't just an emotion, it's a signal, pointing to something deeper you need to face? In this video, we're going to explore how to crush jealousy, not by ignoring it or pretending it doesn't exist, but by mastering it the Stoic way. By the end, you'll know exactly how to turn envy into fuel, how to stay calm when others succeed, and how to live above the noise of comparison. Before we begin, make sure you subscribe and hit the notification bell, because here we focus on building an unshakable mind, step by step.
1. Understanding jealousy's root cause. Jealousy is not born from what others have, it's born from what you believe you lack. Stoics like Seneca understood that emotions aren't random storms, they come from our judgments and beliefs. When you see someone achieving something you desire, your mind instantly measures it against your own life and says, "I should have that too." This reaction is often so quick and so automatic that it feels like the emotion is happening to you rather than being created by you. But a Stoic would remind you, every emotion is the child of your perception, and perception can be trained. Jealousy, in its raw form, is simply a signal that you have encountered something that touches an inner insecurity. It's not inherently good or bad, it's an emotional message, and whether it harms or helps you depends entirely on what you do with it. But here's the truth. Jealousy is rarely about the other person. It's about an internal insecurity, a gap between who you think you are and who you believe you should be. That's why two people can witness the same success in someone else's life and respond in completely different ways, one with inspiration, another with resentment. The difference lies in self-perception and self-esteem. A person who feels secure in their own journey is far less likely to feel threatened by someone else's progress. A person who feels adrift, however, will interpret another's success as proof of their own shortcomings. The Stoics understood this well. Epictetus often spoke about how it is not events themselves that disturb us, but the opinions we hold about them. Jealousy is a vivid example of this. It's not the existence of another person's good fortune that hurts you, but your interpretation of what that means for your own life. When you identify this, you take the first step toward power. You realize you're not powerless against jealousy. It's not an uncontrollable monster. It's a messenger telling you something about your values, priorities, and self-image. If you pay attention, jealousy can actually reveal your hidden desires and unspoken ambitions. Instead of suppressing it or shaming yourself for feeling it, you can investigate it. Ask, what do I think this person has that I don't? Why do I believe that matters? Is it truly valuable, or am I simply chasing an illusion of worth defined by others? Often, you'll discover that jealousy points toward either a neglected goal you genuinely care about or a false standard you've unconsciously accepted. By confronting it directly, you turn jealousy from a thief of joy into a guide towards self-awareness and ultimately freedom.
2. Mastering emotional self-control. The Stoics taught that no one can force you to feel a certain way. Your mind is your fortress, but only if you guard it. When jealousy hits, your instinct might be to react instantly, to criticize the other person, to downplay their success, or to spiral into self-pity. That's exactly when you must pause. The pause is not weakness, it's your training ground. In that moment, you separate your identity from the emotion. You tell yourself, I am noticing jealousy. but I am not jealousy. This is the mental gap where wisdom can enter. Without that pause, you are driven by impulse. With it, you become deliberate. The Stoics would call this the discipline of assent, choosing which impressions you allow into your mind and which you reject. The Stoic approach is to create space between stimulus and response. Instead of feeding jealousy, you observe it. You remind yourself, this is just a thought. It does not define me. By doing this, you stop being a slave to your emotions and start becoming their master. This practice is not about suppressing emotions. Suppression builds pressure, and pressure eventually erupts. Instead, it's about acknowledgement without attachment. You can witness jealousy without obeying it. Think of it like watching a storm through a window. You can see the lightning, hear the thunder, and still remain safe inside. The emotion passes, but your choice in how to act remains yours entirely. Marcus Aurelius said, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. This is where your control begins, not by changing the world, but by mastering the way you see it. Emotional self-control is a muscle. Every time you resist the urge to react impulsively, you strengthen it. And over time, you'll notice that jealousy, which once dictated your mood and actions, loses its grip. It becomes just another passing mental event, not a ruler over your life. This is the Stoic victory, not in eliminating emotions, but in refusing to be ruled by them.
3. Turning envy into personal drive. What if every time you felt jealous, instead of sinking, you used it as fuel to rise? Jealousy can be a compass. If you envy someone's skill, perhaps it's a sign you value that skill and need to develop it yourself. If you envy their freedom, maybe it's time to examine the chains holding you back. The Stoics would urge you to see this as a chance to act, not to brood. You cannot take away another person's advantage, but you can build your own. And when you approach jealousy this way, it transforms from a draining emotion into a motivating force. It's like fire. Left uncontrolled, it burns you. Contained and directed, it can cook your food, warm your home, and forge your tools. The Stoic way is not to resent those ahead of you, but to let their example push you to act. Seneca advised that we should admire great people and emulate them, not envy them. Jealousy without action is just bitterness in disguise. But jealousy transformed into admiration can inspire discipline, persistence, and courage. When you see someone embodying a quality you desire, study them. Learn their habits, their mindset, their routines. Let them become a model, not a measuring stick that diminishes you. Remember, the goal is not to be them, but to become the best version of you, informed by what you've learned from their success. Ask yourself, what lesson is this feeling trying to teach me? Then, take one tangible step toward building that quality, skill, or result in your own life. That's how envy transforms into progress. This approach doesn't just dissolve jealousy, it gives it a new purpose. Over time, you'll find yourself feeling less threatened by others and more energized by them. Their achievements will stop feeling like evidence of your lack and start feeling like proof of what's possible. That's the Stoic art of transmutation, turning the lead of envy into the gold of self-improvement.
4. Building gratitude and contentment. Jealousy cannot survive in a mind full of gratitude. Gratitude shifts your focus from what's missing to what's already abundant in your life. The Stoics practiced this daily, reminding themselves of the blessings they already possessed: health, time, loved ones, the very breath in their lungs. They understood that when you give genuine attention to what you already have, your mind becomes less vulnerable to envy. This is not a denial of ambition, but rather a recalibration of the heart, so that striving is built upon appreciation, not scarcity. When you are deeply aware of what you have, someone else's success no longer feels like a threat. It becomes just another piece of beauty in the world, something to witness, not to compete against. The Stoics would look at a thriving neighbor not with resentment, but with an acknowledgement that fortune's gifts are not a zero-sum game. If another's life blossoms, it doesn't mean yours has withered. It only means the world has more flowers in bloom. This perspective turns jealousy into admiration and competition into inspiration. A simple daily habit can change your perspective. Write down 3 things you're grateful for every morning. Over time, you'll notice jealousy loses its grip because your mind is too busy recognizing its own wealth. Some Stoics wrote letters to themselves or to friends recounting the day's blessings, not as a sentimental exercise, but as mental training. The mind, like a muscle, strengthens whatever it repeatedly practices. If it rehearses complaints, it will become an expert in dissatisfaction. If it rehearses gratitude, it will become an expert in joy. Gratitude also expands your sense of sufficiency. When you recognize that your needs are met, that you have warmth, sustenance, companionship, and a sense of purpose, you begin to see how little you truly lack. The advertising world thrives on making you feel incomplete so that you keep reaching for more. But the Stoic mind resists such manipulation by asking, "What do I truly need to live well?" Often the answer is far less than you've been led to believe. A grateful mindset is also a shield against life's inevitable storms. When hardship comes, it's easy to focus on loss, the job you didn't get, the opportunity that slipped away, the relationship that ended. But if you've trained yourself to see what remains, you will stand more firmly. The Stoic philosopher Epictetus, born a slave and later crippled, still spoke often of the things he could cherish: the use of his mind, the beauty of nature, and the ability to choose his response to fate. Gratitude doesn't erase pain, but it gives you an anchor when waves rise. In the end, building gratitude is not about ignoring problems, but about refusing to let them define you. It's about seeing each day as a gift that will never come again, and therefore treating it as precious. Jealousy asks, "Why don't I have what they have?" Gratitude asks, "How lucky am I to have what I do?" The difference between these two questions is the difference between a restless life and a peaceful one. 5. Living above comparison. Comparison is the thief of joy, and it's the perfect breeding ground for jealousy. The Stoics understood that every life is unique, and to measure yourself against others is to measure the ocean with a teacup. Their victories are theirs. Your path is yours. Just as no 2 rivers flow exactly the same way, no 2 human journeys are identical. When you compare yourself to another, you're comparing 2 stories written in different languages, each shaped by forces unseen and circumstances you cannot replicate. When you stop comparing, you start focusing on what you can control: your actions, your growth, your character. You stop asking, "How do I measure up to them?" and start asking, "Am I better than I was yesterday?" That's the only comparison that truly matters. Marcus Aurelius often reminded himself to judge only his own progress, not by the shifting standards of society, but by the inner alignment between his actions and his principles. This mindset frees you from the exhausting treadmill of trying to outrun someone else's shadow. Living above comparison doesn't mean ignoring others. It means refusing to let their journey dictate your self-worth. That's true freedom. It allows you to admire someone without feeling diminished by them, to celebrate their victories without feeling that yours are somehow smaller. In a world dominated by social media, where highlights are mistaken for whole lives, the ability to step back and see your path as self-contained is not just wise, it's essential. to mental health. Comparison, unchecked, leads to one of two poisons: arrogance or despair. If you perceive yourself ahead of someone, you risk pride that blinds you to your own flaws. If you see yourself as behind, you risk self-pity that paralyzes action. The Stoics avoided both by refusing to rank themselves against others at all. Instead, they focused on living virtuously, which is the same for everyone, regardless of starting point or circumstance. Whether emperor or laborer, the true measure of life was the integrity with which it was lived. To live above comparison is also to recognize that much of what you envy is an illusion. You see the public success, but not the private struggles. You see the possessions, but not the price, not just in money, but in stress, sacrifices, and hidden burdens. When you grasp that every life carries unseen weights, you stop romanticizing other people's paths and start taking responsibility for your own. The Stoics knew that external appearances were unreliable guides to inner peace. In practice, rising above comparison requires intentional discipline. It may mean limiting exposure to triggers, such as endless scrolling through curated lives online. It may mean redirecting your thoughts when you notice envy creeping in. It may mean reminding yourself daily that the race worth running is not against others, but against your own inertia, laziness, and fear. The day you realize you no longer measure your worth by another's scoreboard is the day you begin to live unshackled.
Jealousy is a teacher. It shows you where you feel lacking, where you've given away your power, and where you need to grow. The Stoic way isn't to suppress this feeling, but to understand it, master it, and use it for your own transformation. When you choose gratitude over scarcity, action over resentment, and self-mastery over emotional chaos, you rise above jealousy, and that's when you start living with true inner peace and unshakable power. If this message resonated with you, subscribe, share this video with someone who needs to hear it, and remember, your mind is your greatest weapon. Protect it, train it, and use it well.